So hello guys, this is me Sauraj SMG, the YouTuber of SV4 in 1. And so today we are going to look at a very interesting launch and that's happening right in front of you. It's playing right in front of you. This is the PSLV C52 mission that launched on 14th February 2022. We have never discussed about an Indian rocket before, so let's go. So now the strap-on rocket booster is ignited and lift off. Okay, now you might be thinking, what is the PSLV after all? Okay, before we get any further into the video, let me give you a brief introduction on PSLV. The PSLV is a rocket manufactured by ISRO. It's about 44 meters tall and it's comprised of 4 stages and comes in several different versions. The versions are mainly based on the strap-ons, with the PSLV-CA or core alone having a PSLV-CA or the core alone having no boosters, to this version, which is the PSLV-XL with having 6 strap-on boosters. It is the workhouse of ISRO, with having having launched having launched 53 times to date. It has delivered one of most India's it's delivered India's most recognizable missions, like the Mangalyaan or the Mars Orbiter mission, which was India's first mission to Mars. And on that mission, India became the first country to reach Mars on its first attempt. It actually became the first country to ever reach Mars orbit in its first attempt. And then we have PSLV C37, and if you follow me on Twitter, you know that it launched a record breaking of 104 satellites. Even though that record has been broken by SpaceX by launching 143 satellites, it was actually good. The it also launched the Chandrayaan 1 spacecraft, which was first mission to the moon. It launched some other amazing missions as well. For example, it launched the it will it will also launch the Aditya L1, which is the first mission to the Sun, Shukrayaan, the first mission to ISRO's first mission to Venus, and so on. PSLV remains the workhorse of ISRO. So PSLV is comprised of 4 main stages, and let's just visit a PSLV diagram. So if you can see in this PSLV diagram, you can clearly see this. It's very interesting. So here we go. So the PSLV is contained of 4 stages. There's 4 stages and a satellite. The unique thing about PSLV is it usually launches more than one satellite, because it can have space for more than one satellite, and that is almost exactly the case why they launched this. Now let's look at the rocket itself. So the strap-ons. So here are the strap-ons. We're talking about the strap-ons, and you might notice that there are only 2 of them. As I told, it can be anywhere between 0, it can be 2, it can be 4, it can be also 6 as well. After 6, I really don't know. I think PSLV XL is the largest version. The height of the strap-ons is about 12 meters. The diameter is 1 meter. They use propellant as HTTB. And the propellant mass is given 2 multiplied by 12.2 tons. This means that each booster carries about 12.2 tons of propellant, and if you add up to with 6 on the PSLV-C52 launch, it clearly generates about more than 75 tons of fuel on board this thing. One thing that I've not mentioned here is on the PSLV XL version, we actually have airlit and grounded strap-ons. 4 of the grounded strap-ons ignite on the ground along with the first stage to lift the rocket off, but the other 2 strap-ons only ignite in the air. Once the rocket has launched, it ignites at around 25 seconds after the launch. So they have not given that here. The grounded strap-ons have around a burn time of around 69 seconds. The airless strap-ons having also around the same time, 61 to 62 seconds. And I really don't know the specific impulse though. The next one is the first stage. The first stage is actually known as stage 1, and it's actually comprised of both the strap-ons and the first stage itself. But the main first stage, the core of the first stage, has a height of 20 meters, diameter of 2.8 meters. It also uses HTPB as its fuel, The propellant mass is around 139 tons. 139 tons, which is actually pretty big. Pretty big, no, pretty big. Pretty weightful. Now here's a fun fact. When we the second stage carries far almost it's only a fraction of what is carried on the first stage. As you can see, the propellant mass is just around 4.1 tons. But the propellant is the UH-25 and I don't know what's that. Next, we have the diameter of around 2.8 meters, the same thing again, height of 12.8 meters, and the height of 12.8 meters. This is the PS2. It's also known as the PS2. The third stage is located is literally enclosed within the second stage. As you can see, this entire part is actually the second stage. You might call this as an interstage, which is actually the part where the engine of the next stage is stored. It's part of the previous stage, but this is where the engine of the next stage is actually there. That's called the interstage. But as you can see, not only the engine, but the entire third stage is stored inside this. But the third stage is really small, having a height of only 3.6 meters. The diameter gets smaller at around just 2 meters. HTPP returns as the fuel. The propellant mass is a little bit larger than the PS2, as the stage 3, also known as HPS3, can carry around 7.65 tons on the rocket. After the final stage of the rocket is the PS4, which has a height of around 2.5 meters and the diameter of 1.34 meters. It uses monopropellant and I think it's monolith. I think the propellant is really small. It has around 1.6 tons, and then we have the payload fairing, and that's of course, and to protect the and as a reminder, the payload fairing actually protects the satellite from extreme heats. So that was the PSLV. And for this launch, they actually launched multiple satellites. They launched a total of 3 satellites on board this mission. They launched a total of the 3 satellites on board this mission. The first one was the EOS-04, which is an Earth observation satellite. It will observe the Earth and look for more crop availability. It will detect the floods and the information will go to the farmers on when they should grow the crop. So this is actually a very useful satellite. The next one is the InspireSat-1, which is actually a technology The technology demonstrator from ISRO is actually the other satellite, which is INS-2TD. Yes, it's INS-2TD. And INS-2TD is actually a technology demonstrator between India and Bhutan, which will allow it to launch more satellites in the future. Bhutan will launch more, and INS-2D, I think it's INS-2B. So yeah, the INS-2B is really amazing. So yeah, the INS-2B is gonna 2TD. Okay, what I was saying is the INS-2TD will be a technology demonstrator built by India and Bhutan that will allow Bhutan to launch the INS-2B. It will actually be a test for the INS-2B, kind of like that. The next satellite we're going to talk about is the InspireSat-1. InspireSat-1 is actually a mixed satellite. It comes from 4 countries: India, Taiwan, Singapore, and the United States. So this satellite is actually dedicated by the Colorado, I think the University of Colorado. Now let's go and search for PSLV-C52 by ISRO. So PSLV-C52 injected 3 satellites into orbit at around 6:17 p.m. IST on February 14, 2022. IST. So here we are. Now the Indian Institute, it was right. The IIST and the IIST was actually the main constructor of the InspireSat-1. I accidentally forgot about that one. And the University of Colorado did provide the INS. No, the University of Colorado was actually involved in the InspireSat-1. And actually the INS-2TD, as I told, is an India-Bhutan joint satellite. So yeah. Now ISRO has a new chairman. As you can see, if you know, the chairman was K. Sivan until January of this year, when it was shifted to Okay. Okay. So yeah, this PSLV C52. So yeah. So now we know everything about the mission and the rocket itself. So let's get into the mission. I mean, let's get into the watching the mission. Now, a sad thing is, Astra actually launched a mission called the Elana 41. It was supposed to be the first time there were payloads, but unfortunately, it failed, and all four satellites were lost. We'll talk about that in another video. Now, that's a topic for another video. Let's focus on this one. This is the main focus one now. Okay, the thing is happening again. Okay, 35 seconds from launch. Okay, now let's see how the majestic rocket lifts off. What you're seeing right now is actually the ignition of the RCS thruster. It's actually a RCS thruster. This actually is not. It's not a strap-on, but is actually one of the one of the nine one of the two motors on the first stage that help it to lift off, and then there we go, a majestic lift off. So there we go. So the first announcement that comes immediately after the liftoff is that the liftoff is normal, and you just heard it. If you were gaining now, I'm really sorry if the is not audible though. It's not audible. I'll leave a link to watch this launch, and yeah, I can see it. Soon the next announcement will come that the first stage performance is nominal. That was used to come, but I really don't know what has changed now. There it is. There it is. You just heard that the first stage performance is normal. That is actually it takes the place throughout. And then and the thing that happens, yeah, right after launch, 25 seconds into the launch, is just you heard it. The airless strap-ons, the two airless strap-ons will ignite and give more thrust to the rocket as it banks up as it delivers these three satellites into space. So yeah, there's actually not a lot of things there. Yeah, I'll explain to you what's going on now. The airless strap-ons have ignited. The airless strap-ons have been successfully ignited for now. So there was another announcement. The first stage performance is looking good. You can see the PSLV almost blasted out of it. You can see. I really don't know what that was. You know, now we'll see the grounded strap on separation. It's actually very blurred, but if you pay close attention, you can actually see the grounded strap on separating now. It happens at around 1 minute and 9 seconds into the flight. And if you see carefully, you can see a small flame here. You can see a small flame that just separated the rocket. If you pay close attention, it was here, and then it suddenly started spiraling away. This is that one of the four grounded strap-ons that were just separated, and it is now tumbling back towards the Bay of Bengal down there. And I also forgot to say that this launches just like US launches from the Cape Canaveral, India launches from the Sriharikota. It's very near. It's actually in Andhra Pradesh, in the state of Andhra Pradesh in South India. Anyways, continuing on. So that tiny little flame you see right here, the tumbled away from the rocket, is one of the four grounded strap-ons. Okay, I really don't know what these announcements are, but according Okay, I really don't know what that. There it goes. There it goes. We just confirmed that the other two strap-ons have also been separated. This happens at around 1 minute and 30 seconds into the flight. This literally has around 6 staging events, which is really less. Now, I might argue that Minotaur 5, which has 5 stages, but it does not have strap-ons, so it only has a separation of rest of 4 stages. But this time we have to separate the strap-ons literally in 2 bunches. So as you can see, it's really it has literally 6 staging events. Strap-ons are separated, and the first stage will burn from 1 minute. The PS1, that's actually the animation. So the part up until here, somewhere over here, is the first stage. On the second stage, because the second stage engine, also known as the Vikas engine, is over here. It will soon separate. The first stage will eject itself, while the second stage ignites and continues to carry the payload. Now, this is the payload fairing. And if you're wondering where the third and fourth stages are, the third stage is right here. It's enclosed within the second stage, while the fourth stage is inside the fairing. It will be visible once the payload fairing separates. So it actually has 7 separation events, including the payload fairing, which is less compared to 5 on the Minotaur 5. Yeah, 5 staging events for Minotaur 5. That's yeah. Now here's the thing. At around 1 minute and 50 seconds into the flight, the first stage will also separate, and just around 1 second later, the second stage will begin its around 2.5 minute burn before it also separates. Yeah, only separations in this thing. So what they're saying is that the first stage will be separated and the second stage will now ignite. That's in Hindi. There you go. And if you pay close attention over here for a split second, you could actually see the first stage separating in this animation. As you can see, the second stage Vikas engine is now uncovered, and more than half of the rocket has now been disposed, which is just the first stage, actually. As you can see, the second stage Vikas engine is now burning over here. As you can see. The ignition of the second stage has happened. So I think I saw something called Ulay's separation. I really don't know what that was. Now the next event is the payload fairing separation, which will happen around 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the flight. The ongoing launch vehicle from 1.9 kilometers. So what they're saying is to reach orbit, we all need a velocity of around 7.5 kilometers per second. So before the first stage, up until the first stage, it can only propel up to a speed of 1.4 kilometers per second. But more of the job is done by the second stage, which will now increase the speed to around 4 kilometers per second. Now, the other thing, if you're wondering why it's going HSS here, the PS2I and all, the PS2I stands for PSLV Stage 2 Ignition, Heat Shield Separation, and PSLV Stage 3 Ignition. And heat shield, they've named it as a heat shield because it literally protects. Now, there's a lot of friction in the atmosphere that it passes through. So we need something to protect the satellites. Otherwise, the satellites would just explode. So that's actually what the fairing's job is. But once we have passed the thickest parts of the Earth's atmosphere, past the Earth's atmosphere, as you can see, it already at an altitude of 109.2 kilometers. The last major traces of the Earth's atmosphere is at an altitude of 100 kilometers. Which means the fairing is just extra weight. It's just extra weight. It also decreases the performance of the second stage. It also slightly decreases the performance of the second stage, which is actually not good. So, in order to increase the performance of the second stage, they just jettison the fairing, and that's exactly the reason why the first stage is separated. Now, before we move on, I just wanted to answer a basic question: why do stages separate? The thing is, each stage is loaded with its own fuel. So, once the stage has consumed all of its fuel, it has done its job. And if the second stage ignites with the first stage attached, it will not able to propel as the first stage is too heavy and it will just fall back into the ocean as it will not be able to propel. So the first stage is just separated and is jettisoned back into the ocean. Anyways, let's continue. Now we expect to see that heat shield separation. There it is. There it is. So now you can. Okay, let me step on to that. So you could actually see a bit of the fourth stage here. Let's just continue watching. So this thing which you see right here is the fourth stage. The rest of the fourth stage is also hidden within this red part. So yeah, you just keep hearing these call-outs throughout the mission. The second stage performance looks good. The third stage performance normal, and just like that, you hear it entirely from liftoff till the fourth stage shuts down. After which the fourth stage doesn't just finishes its powered flight, and its performance is not important now. But yeah, the vehicle is now very small and is also very lightweight. As we saw that the first stage is separated and so does the payload fairing and the strap-ons. Now the second stage will burn until at around 4 minutes 20 seconds into the flight before it is ejected, uncovering the third stage. And there is also an event called the closed loop guidance initiation, which I recently learned that before the closed loop guidance is initiated, we it actually the second stage starts to take feedback from the trajectory and starts to and based on the when based on the dip performance, it start to detect its trajectory. Trajectory means the path of the rocket. So it starts to orbit. It starts to kind of like, certainly don't know how to exactly explain that, but it starts to take feedback from the data from the initial trajectory and in an attempt to increase the performance, we just do this. We just initiate a closed loop guidance.
Based on liquid propulsion system with 41-ton propellant loading of UH-25 as fuel and N2O4 as oxidizer, powered by the GG pump-fed Vikas engine that developed 799 kilonewtons thrust. You are able to see the ground trace.
Second stage performance normal.
So let's just see how many minutes we are into the flight right now. So we're now 4 minutes into the flight. In just around 20 seconds from now, the second stage will be separated. Now let's see.
द्वितीय चरण का सामान्य प्रदर्शन.
There it was. So you could just see the third stage within it, and you can just see it. This entire part up until here is actually only this part. It's the third stage. The fourth stage is until here, up until the satellites. You can see here. You can see these two small satellites over here and here. Now I'll continue to give the explanation as we go on, but we'll not be pausing anymore. So in order to save more time, I just want the video to be much shorter. So you can now see the third stage is burning. Now after the third stage is completes its burn, we'll actually see a little bit of a ghost period, which in which there is no powered flight. In that phase, it's doing because the third stage has some kind of residual thrust. It has a very slight amount of remaining fuel that, but if the third stage misfires, it can accidentally bump into the fourth stage, and then automatically the mission will fail. So of course, not all that happen. We allowed it to spend that residual thrust before separating the third stage after around 1 minute 40 seconds after it completes its job. So third stage will actually be shutting down around 100 seconds before it can even separate. As you can see, the altitude is rapidly increasing. It's now already 300 kilometers. The third stage main job is to provide horizontal velocity, which means, as you can see, the rocket is going horizontal as well. You see it going horizontal as well. So in order to this is actually to achieve the correct orbital path. So to do that, the third stage is actually main aim is to increase this horizontal velocity, which the as it goes horizontal, the increase in the velocity horizontal is, of course, it's called horizontal velocity. Velocity means speed of the rocket.
इसका कार्यकाल 124 सेकंड का होगा और उसके बाद
So the third, so here we are. The third stage will actually be attached, but it will not separate. So yeah, during the coast phase, I think up until year or somewhere over here, I think it either lasts over a year or year. I don't know. I think it lasts over a year because you can see some parts of the third stage here as well. You can see the red parts. So we're now around 6.5 minutes into the flight, and you can see the third stage has shut down. It's shutting down.
तृतीय चरण का चलन काल समाप्त होता हुआ
So we're now in the coasting phase.
kilometers in the altitude.
So
As
even
the launch vehicle loses velocity,
so now as you can see, the it's going to start down a bit, but then it increases just like that. Before we are in this orbit, which satellites have to separate. Now the thing is, now if you're wondering why this increases, now with no thrust from the rocket, it will automatically decrease a bit. But then this is where the fourth stage is in, right? And the fourth stage will continue to uh, provide the required propulsion.
exists while the rocket is 950 to 1,500 kilometers downrange from the launch port.
Now, downrange means the distance between the rocket and the launch port, launch from where it launched. As you can see, it's already 1,178 kilometers away from the launch. It is also climbing horizontally, it's going horizontal as well.
Sharp entry station, test traffic.
Okay, now comes the third stage separation. Now comes the third stage separation.
There is no thrust, however, the launch vehicle continues to be controlled. For the course stage control,
And now you can see the third stage almost will separate now. 8 minutes into the flight. And okay, I expect to see the third stage separating shortly. There it goes. Just saw the third stage being separated. Now after about 9 seconds, the fourth
तृतीय
stage will
चरण
ignite.
खत्म कर दिया गया है इसके 9 सेकंड बाद चतुर्थ
So yeah, the fourth stage engine has ignited. As you can see a blurry thrust now. It's not so clear.
चतुर्थ चरण का प्रज्वलन सामान्य
So there we are. Now we'll just skip the next 9 minutes as there's almost nothing except for the first stage. The fourth stage will just keep on burning now, except that nothing will happen. Now let's just skip it because the fourth stage will just be burning for the next 10 minutes and almost nothing will happen. So let's just skip until we get to the satellite separation, of course, because that's the course of the mission. We have to deliver all three satellites into their orbits. Okay, now comes the moment.
We are awaiting satellite co-passenger satellite.
Let's rewind a bit to see the fourth stage shutting down.
This mission is the AOS-04, which is the radar-based satellite designed to provide.
As you can see, it has almost reached orbital velocity.
A group of remote sensing satellites like resource sat, cartosat, or ranging mini,
If you're wondering which are these resource sat, cartosat, and all which she's talking about right now, these are actually the other Indian Earth observation satellites. Now, ISRO has so far launched only three observation satellites in the EOS family. EOS-04 was the third one. EOS-01 launched successfully, I think, in 2020. No, I think it was in 2020. Yeah, I think it was in 2020. However, EOS-03, which was launched in 2021, sadly failed to reach orbit. EOS-02 is expected to launch on board India's next vehicle, the SSLV, in about next month. Okay, now let's continue watching it.
series. The hallmark of Indian space program
Okay, it does mean that the fourth stage is still burning at this moment. Okay, I really don't know why this thing came into view now. Okay, now that two engines on the first stage, actually two engines on the fourth stage, it's not the first stage, it's the fourth stage, will now be separated. It will be shut down. There it is. We just completed the fourth stage burning now. The fourth stage has finished burning. It's like that all the propulsion needed for the rocket, it's now officially in its orbit now. Is the what's just left it to separate, which is actually the most important part of the mission. It's actually the most important part of the mission. This means that the all conditions which were necessary for the satellites to be placed into its orbit are successfully achieved. Okay, now we have the main satellite EOS-04 is going to separate now. There we go. There we go. You can see EOS-04 floating away from the fourth stage of the rocket. You can see a bit of the fourth stage here. But my primary is the interest is the EOS-04, which, as you can see, is floating away from the second stage now. I mean, the fourth stage. That means it successfully has been separated into its orbit. EOS-04 has been successfully separated in its orbit. Now the two satellites, the Inspire Sat 1 and INS-2TD, will now be injected into their orbits as well. Okay, there we go. There we go. We can see you can see this Inspire Sat 1 also has separated. And now for the final satellite, INS-2TD. There we go. The mission has been successfully completed. So yeah, that was all from my side that I had to complain on today. So yeah, I also want to show you a small clue on what's coming up next. Next in my thing. And to say the least, it's something about this. My country reveal will be coming soon. I may be doing a country reveal, but I still don't know. So stay tuned for that. And soon I will be back with another video, guys. So that was all for today. And see you all again. Bye. Bye for now.